helicopter to extract Simon's force. It was like flying into the middle of a burning ammunition dump, and put them down outside Son Tay. His men were still under fire as they broke contact with the enemy and reboarded Britain's HH-53. 9 minutes into the raid, Sydnor radioed everyone to revert back to the basic plan. 30 seconds later, Britain landed Simons and his men outside the walls of Son Tay. He may have set a new record: 3 combat assault sorties in 9.5 minutes. Britain took off immediately, as planned, and flew to the holding area. Simon's demolition team raced into position to knock out the bridge north of the prison. Sydnor's men executed the few elements of the basic plan not yet carried out, destroying the power station and power poles outside the compound, and clearing the pump house on the canal southwest of the camp. Inside Son Tay, Dick Meadows and his men, unaffected by the change of plans, were still clearing and searching the prison. They were taking sporadic fire, but they had landed with devastating surprise. Most of the North Vietnamese guards at Son Tay prison, about 55 of them, were dead or wounded before their eyes could focus on the crazy Americans who were shooting up an empty prison. For by now, Meadows' men were reporting negative items, no prisoners, as they broke into one cell after another. 10 minutes into the raid, Meadows radioed over the command net, "Wildroot, this is Blue Boy. Negative items at this time." He ran into the cell blocks to check for himself. 1 minute later he radioed again, "Search complete. Negative items." Son Tay prison was a dry hole. Sydnor reacted instantly. "Prepare to withdraw to LZ, the landing zone, for extraction. Blue Boy and Red Wine exit on first extraction helicopter. Set up LZ security. Red Wine to west, Greenleaf to east." Sydnor sent one of his photographers racing through the breached walls to photograph the empty cells. 14 minutes into the raid, he ordered one of the HH-53s to take off from the holding area and land back at Son Tay. 27 minutes into the raid, the last 30 raiders and Simon, Sydnor, and Meadows were aboard the second HH-53. Sydnor told the pilot of Apple II, John Allison, "Count 33, count correct," and the plane lifted off. As it streaked for the Laotian border, zigzagging to avoid potential ground fire or missiles, Simons learned with relief that only one man had been wounded, a sergeant with a flesh wound in the inner thigh. Simon's assault teams and Britain's pilots had performed flawlessly. The landing had been fast and violent. Surprise was total. The search had been swift, fire precise, reactions unflappable, the withdrawal smooth. It was beautiful. There was only one thing wrong. Not a single prisoner was with them as they headed back to marry up with refueling tankers over Laos. The flight back to Thailand was quiet but not uneventful. Simon's men were very let down, very quiet. They knew they had done their job and done it well, but it was not the job they had wanted to do. 45 minutes out of Son Tay, when he was supposed to report on the condition of the rescued prisoners, Simons pulled out a code book and composed a message for Manor. He looked up the word for prisoners, put the word negative in front of it. He looked up the word moved, put previously in front of it. Then he asked Allison to relay the message to Monkey Mountain. It was now 3:35 a.m. at Manor's command post near Da Nang, 1 hour and 17 minutes since Meadows had landed in Son Tay. Manor received Simon's message. There were no prisoners at Son Tay. They had been previously moved. Simons thought Manor already knew that by monitoring Meadows' transmissions while the assault force was still on the ground. But the dry hole was news to Manor. He asked for the message to be repeated, but got back only a garbled transmission. Within seconds he sent a flash message that would reach the Pentagon Command Center 10 minutes later. Possibly negative POWs, leaving TACCNS for Udorn. It meant that he was taking off from Da Nang to be on hand personally to clarify the situation when Simons landed at Udorn. As Simon's helicopters flew the last leg of their lonely, long flight back to Udorn, Manor's cryptic message, possibly negative POWs, arrived at the Pentagon Command Center. It was 3:35 Friday afternoon, November 21st. That Friday afternoon and evening, a lot of men spent some very rough hours. At Fort Belvoir, Claude Watkins was told of Manor's 3:35 message, possibly negative POWs.